So today we have Dr. Paul Wilkes with us today. Mm-hmm. And I had seen you on another podcast, and I had shared it on my Instagram page, and I was like, what you shared about your children was so moving to me, and I loved it so much. But I also knew you because you were my doctor.
Yes.
And I mean, I think 1 in 5 people, you've been their doctor that I know. Like, I'm not even joking. And everyone I know that knows you loves you.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, you are so loved. You are so, I don't even know, when I was in your office and you gave me your number, I was like, hold on, there's something wrong here. But you are just such a loving, beautiful human being. And I mean, seriously, and your children are a reflection of that. Katie, I know very well. And funny story is, I actually was supposed to be your nanny, but Logan took that spot.
Oh, she swooped it.
She swooped it.
It didn't pay that well. So
no, I'm sure it paid just fine.
It's not a great gig.
But I
had a lot of good stories
when
though.
Ryan was little and Charlotte.
Yeah,
and then Logan swooped in, but she's way more fun.
Love that girl.
She's a good person, but I really do appreciate you coming on here.
Of course.
And
Thank you for having me.
I mean, when you said you wanted to come on, I even told my sister-in-law, she's like, I'm coming. I'm like, bitch, you never come to any of our recordings. She's like, well, I don't care. I'm exhausted, but I'm coming. But you have such a beautiful story. Like your life, I mean, where did you even grow up? Like where were you born and raised?
Yeah, so I was born in Bethesda, Maryland. And at about the age of 5 or 6, we moved to Las Vegas.
Wow.
Yeah. And we were East Coast, my mom, my dad, like East Coast forever. And he got a job opportunity out of here and moved us out here in like 71, 72.
Wow.
Population 125,000. In the morning, my mom would line me and my 2 brothers up, give us each $1. We'd be on our bikes, and the rule was be back by the time the streetlights go on.
Yep.
Like, you imagine doing that now?
No, never.
And we would disappear. No cell phones, no way to track us, and we would have to be back when the streetlight. And my mom wasn't ever even like, what do you guys do today? I think she was just like, you didn't get arrested and you're alive. Cool.
You're good.
Another 24 hours in the book.
The neighbors didn't rat on you. You're fine.
We got caught doing a lot of dumb shit.
Usually the neighbors would get everybody.
Yeah, but it's like harmless shit. You're not like robbing banks. You're just like having fun.
No. Occasional 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
But not like armed robbery.
Just stealing a Twinkie.
Someone would, like distract the guy and we would put some candy in the pocket. And no, I grew up right down by Valley View in Charleston, down by where UMC is. And, we would ride our bikes out into the desert and build forts and find shovels and dig holes. And I mean, and my brothers and I were born, we were October 28th, 65, October 17th, 66, October 28th, 67.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's very consistent.
3 boys in 3 years.
Wow.
And we were known as the Wilkes boys, not affectionately.
Yes.
They're troublemakers.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's got a ring to it, though.
In fact, when my first wife, Makin, we met up at, like how teenagers meet up. We were at, a party, people are drinking beer, whatever, and Makin came up and told her mom, like, I found the guy. And her mom said, oh my God, tell me everything about it. What's his name? She's like, his name's Paul Wilkes. And she goes, one of the Wilkes boys? No.
It's like one of the 311 boys?
We were like West Side Crips. We were terrible human beings.
But she
I grew up in Vegas.
Wow.
And have been a Vegas kid my whole life.
That's amazing.
That is amazing.
There's not a lot of you guys still around. Just
most have overdosed or gone to jail. Most of my friends.
Well, but you stayed here, but you went to college and
I actually went away to boarding school.
Oh,
Did you really?
Yes. In 9th grade. So for high school, there's a school called Kate School. It's in Santa Barbara. And it's it's the only boarding school west of the Mississippi ever to be rated in the top 10.
Wow.
So it wasn't like, you're an asshole, go to boarding school, I can't handle you. My father was always very big on education. And back in the 80s, late 70s, 80s, Vegas was not a hotbed of education.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was going to school and getting A's without even trying.
Wow.
And I'm not like some super genius. You know, there are times I put my pants on backwards. So,
A lot of geniuses do.
Yes,
so my
yeah.
dad said, you guys are going away. And my two brothers and I went to boarding school.
All three of you?
Wow.
All three of us.
Wow.
High
See?
school?
Yeah, high school.
Wow.
First time ever that the boarding school had three siblings at the same time.
Wow.
So I went to boarding school, and then out of boarding school, went to UCLA for a year. And about a year, my boarding school was very small. My graduating class was 60.
Wow.
I went to UCLA, and my freshman chemistry class was 500. I
Wow.
was totally lost.
Like shell shocked.
Shell shock.
Yeah, that's a lot to walk into.
Yeah. And joined a fraternity, spent more time like partying than going to school. And after about year one, I realized like, you got to figure this out. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to take some time off, because I wanted to be a doctor, but clearly it took a lot more work than I was putting in.
Yeah.
So I took a year off, moved back to Las Vegas, and I got two jobs. One was at Valley Hospital as a radiology transporter from noon to 9 p.m. And I had a job as an ER, like, I don't even know what they go, like an orderly, from midnight to 9 a.m.
Wow.
And I just said I'm going to submerge myself in medicine. And if I like it, I'll figure it out.
Wow.
And the other thing I wanted to be was a teacher. And UMC is a academic teaching institution. It was my first exposure to the fact that you could be a doctor and you could teach other doctors. And I
Wow.
fell in love with it. And so I'd been accepted to Pepperdine University out of high school, and I wrote them a letter explaining why my grades were so bad
Yeah.
at UCLA, that I had really rededicated myself to the pursuit of excellence, and if they would just give me a chance, they won't regret it.
Yeah.
And they accepted me.
Wow.
Of course. You're so charismatic.
They bought it.
So I went to Pepperdine for 4 years, University of Nevada School of Medicine, and then came back to Vegas for my residency for 4 years, and fell in love with high-risk pregnancy.
Yeah, that's very niche. Like, that's not just like OB. Like, that's like, it takes a very, you have to, I mean, that's a lot of care.
Yeah,
It really
I love
is.
I love the challenge. I love the idea that I was responsible for two people at once.
Yeah.
And in a lot of instances, what's best for the mom is not best for the baby, and vice versa. So you have to find that balance. And I loved that challenge. And so after my residency, I took a postdoctoral fellowship in what's called maternal fetal medicine or perinatology, high-risk pregnancy. Moved to Denver for 3 years, taught, did research, wrote some journal articles and textbook chapters.
Wow.
And was actually going to stay on at University of Colorado and have an academic life. And
Wow.
got this opportunity to come back to Las Vegas and join Joe Aditschek, who
Yeah.
had just started Desert Perinatal Associates. And the year that I entered fellowship was the first year it went from 2 years to 3 years.
Okay.
So it was a big commitment. I mean, there were people that would come out and say, I want to learn more about ultrasound, I'll do 2 more years. But
Yeah.
3 years, and you had to publish research. So it was a
Wow.
real commitment.
Wow. But
So
you love a challenge.
I love a challenge. So the year that I graduated, I think there were only 32 perinatologists in the country graduating that year. And people were offering me like country club memberships.
Oh, I'm sure.
Wow.
$100,000 signing bonus, like crazy salaries. And Joe Aditschek, who had just started his practice, offered me the opportunity to buy half the practice, which was about $1.8 million in debt. Great,
Great
good
buy-in.
idea.
great investment strategy.
Sold you.
Yep.
So I could buy half the practice,
Yeah.
immediately become a partner, and be 50% owner. And the salary he offered me was like, at the time, I don't want to say barely enough to live on. I had my wife, who was full-time mom, 2 kids. We were looking to buy a house, but it wasn't much more than that. I mean, there wasn't a lot of fluff. And some of these other salaries, like I remember a practice in Kansas offered me $700,000 a year in 2002.
Wow.
But you're in Kansas.
Oh, there's that. Yeah. There's
Dorothy's
that.
from there.
But I kind of felt like I had a lot of long talks with Makin, who was my wife at the time.
Yeah.
And I said, if we should go for a home run.
Yeah.
Base hits are boring.
Because you believed in yourself and your skill, and you just knew what you wanted. Is that true?
Well, I knew that I wanted to potentially change the level of care that was being delivered in Las Vegas at the time. And there were some very good doctors here.
Yeah.
But I felt like I could make an impact coming back to Las Vegas at the time. And it was during the medical malpractice crisis.
Wow.
And Vegas was rated the #1 most hostile place to be in obstetrics and gynecology. And I remember a quote by Warren Buffett. He said, "When the building's on fire and everyone's running out, run it."
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, we'll
Here's
give
my
it a shot.
opportunity.
Came back. It was me and Joe Adishek. We had a 1,200 square foot office, 4 employees. And now it's 10 of us, 4 locations, 140 employees.
And you guys are the people to see. Like, there is,
thank you.
No, really. Like in like the mom community,
Thank
right?
you.
If that's you guys, I'm not even joking. The level of care and the caring of the patient is insane. Like not a lot of I mean, we were just talking about this, like how we have been to so many doctors, right? And I will, when I have a problem, I will come to you. I will go to my OB, whoever. I'll go mostly to you and see you, other than like a family doctor, because the level of care is just, it really is, it's sad. There's a handful of people who genuinely care about what they do. And you show that even just in your bedside manner. Like, you give a shit. Like, you wait for the questions. You're not like, I'm on to the next. And you are busy.
Yeah, I'm burning the candle at both ends.
You are.
Yeah.
But I really think it's why God blessed me with 2 daughters. I have 2 daughters and a son. And my son is truly one of the nicest people I've ever met.
Aww.
He is just so kind and compassionate, loving, caring, concerned. But, when I'm taking care of a woman, it's personal for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm always thinking, how would I want someone to treat one of my daughters in this situation? And it might be the 20th time that day I've been asked the same question.
Right.
Really. Because, I mean, pregnancy only has about 3 or 4 diagnoses. And one of them's pregnancy. And one of them's labor. So it's not rocket science I'm doing here. But, and I've seen people that, the patient says, well, I have this feeling right here, and they don't even let her finish, and they go, oh, that's the ligaments of the uterus stretching. It's normal. Like, this is someone who's waited a week or 2 to ask me this question, and I can't give her a minute
I know.
to finish her question. I mean, a large part of my job is reassuring nervous moms.
You do? Yeah, I was going to say therapy.
It's reassuring nervous moms. And you can't reassure someone you're not listening to.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think people have a real sensitive bullshit meter. Okay? Yes. I do. And I think people can tell when you're phoning it in.
Absolutely. Especially like when you're that vulnerable in those situations.
Yeah, it's a very special place. I mean, I think anyone who has kids will say that the birth of their children was probably the most special day of their lives.
Yeah.
Right? And I've been trusted with that, and I've been invited into that moment, and Mother's Day and Father's Day is really special to me because I reflect on how many times I was privileged enough to be there when a mom or dad met their son or daughter for the very first time.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Like, I'm getting goosebumps talking about
it.
But
this is very genuine of who you are. Like, this is very telltale of the person that you are, because even just sitting with you and it's whatever kind of appointment is, you do, and you even interact with the dads, and most people don't even talk to the dads.
I mean, that was one of the first things, because I had been to a handful of your appointments before you got referred to him, and they were great. But at the same time, when I got there, I remember my first impression of you. You had
First, it was his shoes.
Yeah, for 100% the shoes.
Strong shoe game.
Oh yeah, we'll get there.
We're getting there.
But I'm just
we
like
got a sneakerhead over here. Kind of.
Yeah, like,
not the money, not the bank account.
No, I'm like retired, but whatever. But you just had like this aura around you, like you genuinely cared. Like I noticed the shoes first, and you were like these brand new Kevin Durant's that had just dropped like that week. I'm like, it's a Monday morning at 8:00. We got the first appointment. The people were rioting for these sneakers over the weekend. How did you get them? So that's my first thought. Yeah. So
my son was a sneakerhead, and he would be like, Dad, I can get these in a size 11. They're so awesome. I'd be like, get them.
Yeah.
You know?
You got the hand me ups.
Yeah, exactly.
How many pairs of shoes do you have?
Well, I've really pared down.
Have you?
I recently, well, not recently now, it's been 4 years, but I built a house, and like half of this fairly decent sized walk-in closet was all shoes.
I believe you.
And the house that I moved into with Christine, my entire closet is smaller than my shoe closet was.
Oh,
wow.
So you had to...
So I gave away like 80 pairs
Shut
when
up.
I moved.
I wore 11.
Was that hard for you, or were you okay with it?
You know what?
Did you Marie Kondo like, thank you?
Yeah. I went through this period of consumerism.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people do.
Sure.
Of course.
And it was this pursuit of stuff to try and change the way I was feeling. And I just couldn't shake that internal feeling of, I don't even want to call it emptiness because I have a really full, beautiful life, but it wasn't complete satisfaction.
Yeah.
And I had in the past, the distant past, turned to drugs and alcohol to fill that void. Because that's all addiction is. You don't like the way you feel. You found something that makes you feel better quickly.
Yeah.
And you convince yourself that the aftermath wasn't that bad, and you do it again.
Right.
So I'd figured out that doesn't work. And then I kind of got into this pursuit of stuff. And I was like,
but like you went from one thing to the next, right? Like addiction. I feel like I can't relate. I love when you talk about this because it's something that is very real, very serious. Like my family has suffered from, a few of our cousins have passed away from addiction.
Sorry.
It's a serious thing. It's a very and it breaks down. I always say addiction. I mean, from my experience, I've never first-handedly experienced it. It just robs you of your soul. I feel like the soul, it takes your soul from you, and it's not who you are. Like my cousins I've watched, and we very openly talk about this, but like they aren't the humans, they aren't the people that God, like I know that God was with them their whole journey, like it was obvious, but you could tell there's like a darkness within them that they just, not that it's their fault, but it's almost
They can't shake it.
They can't shake it. And I feel like I felt like with because they did like meth, black tar heroin, they've
Fentanyl,
and my one cousin has been doing it since he was 16.
Yeah.
And he's like 30,
30 something,
33. And he's still just like, I don't know how he's surviving, but he came to his brother's funeral and I hadn't seen him in years. And I think that was the first time I realized addiction really isn't, I mean, I feel like, it is a choice, but it takes a very, 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 you need a foundation to break out of that. Like, I feel like you need something bigger than you. Sometimes it's kids for people.
Yeah.
God, their religion, whatever it is, but I didn't recognize him. And it was so heartbreaking because I just can't imagine what it was like being in his shoes, walking into his brother's funeral, his first words were, "That should have been me."
Yeah.
And knowing that everyone there was judging him. Because they were. Because not a lot of people have empathy or understanding or can know what he's feeling or going through. But there was a lot of judgment there.
Of course.
And I don't know. I just feel like I'm like, of course, because I can't speak to it. But I'm so intrigued by people who we have a very good friend who is is sober, who's recovering. And I just admire him so much. And I love hearing his stories because I love learning, because I have children.
Yeah.
And I just like to know, like, where is this void that you're filling? Or is it a void? Or is it, where can I do good as a parent to bring my children up in an environment? And it might not even be parents, who knows? But sorry, all to say,
Yeah.
it's a very hard thing to overcome that you have overcome.
Yeah, I think for me, and I faced a lot of challenges in my life, physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, financially. I think the only thing harder than a good program of recovery is living in addiction. But the problem is you can't even imagine life without your drug of choice when you're in it. You just can't imagine it. I'm never, ever going to be able to do fill in the blank, whatever it is, again. Mm-hmm. Never. And I can see where that scares a lot of people away, you know?
Yeah.
But
what was your drug of choice?
I loved vodka and cocaine.
Did you?
Yes. I always thought they should make a martini. Call it like the Makin, which actually now that I think
Line the
about
rim
it,
with cocaine.
Now that yeah.
Oh wow!
Like a little
We're onto
shelf.
something
Yeah.
here.
Sorry, no, we're not onto something.
No, I'm joking.
Yeah. Dibs on that idea.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay if
Copyright.
you're a recovering addict.
But for me, my drug of choice is alcohol. I mean, the only reason I ever kind of discovered or tried cocaine was because the people who were doing cocaine could drink more.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
Drink more.
yeah.
So you
I
wanted to
was
keep up.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, that looks good.
Yeah.
You know, the beautiful thing about any 12-step program, and I'm most familiar with Alcoholics Anonymous, is there's only one step of the 12 steps that even has the word alcohol in it. And so I think people think going into, I'll just speak to Alcoholics Anonymous. There's Narcotics Anonymous, Sex Addicts Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous, Gamblers Anonymous, but I really, my lane is Alcoholics Anonymous. And the first step of Alcoholics Anonymous says we admitted we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives had become unmanageable. Okay?
Wow.
And the first word in the first step is we. Like,
So it doesn't feel so.
you're not alone.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
I love
addiction is such an isolating disease. You get to a point where you can't, with a straight face, consume your drugs the way you want to, because other people are like, bro,
Slow down.
pump the brakes, right?
Yeah.
Like, but I think people get caught up in the idea that all recovery is about is stopping drinking or stopping doing drugs.
Yeah.
Nothing could be further from the truth, because the key to unlock the door is you got to put down the drink or the drug. You have to.
And that's a personal choice. That was never pushed on you, was it?
No.
Did your circumstances go, okay, this happened, that happened, I need to let it go? You just decided?
I was not living in the street and eating out of a dumpster.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's another thing that keeps successful people sick, because they talk about your rock bottom. And
Yeah.
it's like, I'm driving a nice car into a nice house, married to a nice woman, going on nice vacations, and I have a nice bank account. How is my life unmanageable?
Yeah.
Well, you can't look at yourself in the mirror and every day you wake up, you're pissed off you didn't die.
Right.
Wow.
Like,
Wow.
it can look very shiny from the outside.
Yeah.
Okay? It can look very shiny from the outside. And I think there's a lot of shame and self-loathing for people who are successful who go into AA, and the guy sitting next to you has all his belongings in a
Yeah.
garbage bag because he just got out of prison.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, that guy probably should party. His
Yeah.
life sucks. Right?
Yeah.
Like, your
He
life
needs a
sucks,
high.
dude.
Yeah.
You should
Yeah, we're not the same.
let me buy you a drink.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Do you
But-
need a ride?
But when everything looks shiny on the outside, but you are suffering so deeply on the inside. And I mentioned this in another podcast one time, that way before you guys were born, there was a smoking ad that said, if cigarettes did to you on the outside what they did to you on the inside, would you still smoke? And it was this old haggard lady with like black tar dripping off of her and ulcers in her skin, and it just gross, right?
Yeah, I remember seeing this.
Yeah. And I kind of wish that we as humans were able to do that with how we were feeling, right? Because I think anyone who knew me when I was, active in addiction would have thought, like, this guy's got the world by the balls.
Yeah.
You're so charismatic and fun. I could only imagine like what you were like when you didn't give a shit about.
But on the inside, just horrible.
Really?
Just suffering every day.
Did you feel you mentioned lonely. Did you feel lonely? Is this when you had like when you said lonely, is it because it was so like this internal dialogue of like self-hate? Where was it? What was it?
Yeah, I could feel lonely in a room of 100 people.
Wow.
And now I can be alone and not feel lonely at all.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is that no matter where I go, God is with me.
Amen.
Amen.
God is with me. And that's what steps 2 through 12 are in Alcoholics Anonymous. The program, the first step is you have to quit drinking.
Yeah.
So that you have a clear mind to experience the miracle of the next 11 steps.
Okay.
And the next 11 steps are designed to get you to establish a relationship with a power greater than you. And it doesn't have to be God. Because 50% or 40% of the people in Alcoholics Anonymous are atheist or agnostic.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So you go in and you sit in your first meeting and people are like, God, 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 God. They're like, no, I'm out.
Yeah.
But it's a power greater than yourself. Mm-hmm. So if you can humble yourself to admit that there's something out there that's bigger than I am, you can recover.
Did you have this encounter?
Well, I didn't have a problem with God.
Okay.
Okay, I was raised in the Episcopal Church. We went to church every Sunday. My dad was one of the guys handing out communion.
Yes.
I never had a problem believing in God. The problem was that I thought I knew more.
Yeah.
I thought I was smarter. Like, I didn't buy into the fact that God had a plan for my life, and it was better than the one that I had for my life.
Yeah.
Now, I was really good at leaning in and following God's plan when everything was going according to my plan.
Yeah.
Like when God's plan and my plan synced up, he's my roll dog.
Yeah.
Right.
We're both rowing in the same direction.
Yeah.
But when I didn't get the girl, I didn't get the job, I didn't get the whatever.
Yeah.
When I didn't get the external thing that I thought was going to make me happy, God had abandoned me.
Yeah.
In truth, I had abandoned God. God has never once turned his back on me. In my grimiest moment, my most dishonest, loathsome moment, God was right there. But I chose to turn my back on him because of shame.
Yeah.
Like I was so mixed up and arrogant that I stopped praying because I didn't want God to pay attention to me.
Because, oh, wow.
God's paying attention to me all the time.
Yeah.
You know? But I was like, oh no, I'm not reaching out.
Yeah.
I'm just going to hide in the shadows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like you won't see me.
Like that's just such an arrogant attitude.
But it's also a very young, it's a very immature relationship with God too. Like I was raised Catholic. I didn't know, I would say prayers, kneel, stand, do the thing. I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
It wasn't until, I'm not even joking, like shit hit the fan in my life. And the person that was partially responsible for the shit flying everywhere introduced me to God. Introduced me to a church that was relationship based, not religion based. So it was, and if it wasn't for God, and I swear to God, I always say this, he is the reason I know God exists, because he came to me in my life at that time when I was just building a relationship with God, when I literally could have gone so many other directions. Even my therapist was like, I am shocked you are not an alcoholic, a drug user. You know, you have all these things. And I'm like, it's because of God, and because I met him when I was 19, and it fucking changed my life. He loved me unconditionally. It was just amazing how easy it was to love God. And not just because, and things were horrible, but I knew God was with me. I got baptized that year, but I didn't know a relationship with God like I do now, because I didn't know. I was raised in a very, like you said Episcopalian, right?
Yeah.
It's very,
it's like Catholicism.
Yeah. There's no, it was a lot of guilt, right? A lot of shame, a lot of you need to do this. You have to say this many Hail Marys, Our Fathers. You need to tell a man what you did wrong, and he'll tell you how to get right with God. Well, when I went to this church, I was like, you don't need a middleman. You could just, and something my dad always told me too, you don't need to talk to anybody about your shit. You can just go directly to God. And it's very interesting, because I look back on my life at that time, and just like you were saying, God was always there. Even before all this shit happened. It's just incredible, because I'm so grateful, which I'm sure you feel this way too, but I'm so grateful for the man he brought into my life that and he didn't know God. He knew, but he was just very much
yeah, I mean, I didn't have an active relationship. I believed in a God or God at that point, but I had a bar mitzvah. I was half Jewish, half Catholic. Didn't really have much of a relationship. And when we started dating, I started going to church with you, and I was like, yeah, I like this. I'm feeling something here. I believe all this stuff. This is great. And then I got baptized, and we started going to church together, and we were 19, 20 at that point. It was, yeah.
And I've always said, we have a God-centered relationship, and we're not perfect by any means.
No.
We swear, we drink, we do think we all mess
It's a
up.
Non-alcoholic beer.
Yeah. But
I don't like them yet, though. I'm trying.
But we truly, when you talk about God, and I've listened to your other podcasts, it's so moving, because I very much feel what you felt. And I think it's so important for people to hear that, not just from us, because we're whatever, but from somebody who has had your own internal struggles, had your own, did your addiction affect your family at all, or?
Oh, of course. Listening to you all talk about your upbringing in the church, and then in your late teens, you actually finally established a genuine relationship with God. I remember the first time I walked into church and they had a drum set and an electric guitar on stage, and I was like,
holy cow.
Am I in the right spot? Because everything with me growing up was organ and hymns, and I didn't even have to open up.
And the organ's in the back behind you. You can't even see it.
I didn't even have to open up the prayer book. I knew it by heart, right?
Wow.
And I think that, and there's nothing wrong with religion.
No.
But I think that at least the religion in which I was raised, and many of my friends were raised Catholic, I think religion is for people who are afraid to go to hell. And you're looking for the best way to not go to hell.
Yeah.
I think spirituality is for people who've been there.
Wow.
And I believe, and I don't know what your struggle was, but I know I've had my struggles, bone-crushing, heartbreaking struggles. And I know for a fact that God put each of those into my life to give me the opportunity to get closer to Him.
Wow.
Because every single time I've gone into a storm and tried to control the storm, I've drifted farther away from God. Mm-hmm. But when I accept the storm and control my reaction to it and lean into God, I pop out the other side a changed man.
Yeah.
There's a lesson in the storm that you experienced at 19, right? And when you say the reason you believe in God is because in your darkest hour, He came into your life, There's no way that wasn't by design. Just my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay? And I think that when you find someone who loves you unconditionally,
Yeah.
that's a spiritual experience.
Absolutely.
And I know that when, I was raised in a household where it was very, like, the rules, if you break them, you're punished, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was, my interpretation of it as a kid growing up is, like, when I break the rules and I get punished, my parents are really mad at me and they don't love me. Mm-hmm. Okay? I'm in a relationship now where Christine can really dislike the way I'm behaving, and I know she still loves me.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, if I've been up a couple nights and I come home, I'm a little bitch. Okay? Like, I don't want to hear about your day.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about the dress you got on Revolve.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear about the my wife's active in recovery. We have an AA meeting for women at our house every Thursday.
wow.
And it's a wonderful, like, this girl's ride or die for
Jeez,
recovery.
is that where you met her?
No, we met on a blind date.
Shut
Nice.
up.
Yes. And she was wasted. And I was sober.
I love her.
Nice.
And we had this 3-hour date. We just talked, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the date, I said, let me walk you to your car. And I walked her to her car, and I said, I had a really good time. I'd like to do this again. And she said, same, brah, and chest bumped me and got in her car and drove off.
If that's not love, I don't know.
And
what
I
it
was
is.
like,
This is it.
I need her in my life on some level. There
Yeah.
wasn't some romantic spark. It was more of a friendship vibe.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, I was just like, wow, there's something about her.
Yeah.
And through the course of our relationship, we've supported each other and we've loved each other and we've taken the best from each other and accepted the worst. And it's this amazing, wonderful relationship where because of her, I truly am a better man.
Yeah. Wow.
And I hope that because of me, she's become a better woman. And one of the greatest compliments that I think she might have ever received is all 3 of my kids have gone up to her and said, you're the greatest thing that's ever happened to my dad.
Oh,
I've
wow.
never seen him happier. I've never seen him calmer. And I've never seen him more patient and loving and
Wow.
kind. And that is not an accident, that I was able to reach the next level of patience and love and kindness when Christine came into my life.
Wow. Yeah. It's obvious how much you love her.
Mm-hmm.
I
Oh,
love
she's,
it.
yeah.
That's the other thing I said. I'm like, I just love how much you love her. It's so obvious. And it's so beautiful because she mutually loves you just as much.
Yeah, we love each other.
And you
I
guys
got
are
her.
so
I got her
fun.
phone number
I
tattooed on
cannot.
my
I
leg.
thought that was fake. I thought that was fake.
I can't ever remember it.
You're so
You don't
funny.
just
swear
touch
to
the
God.
face?
If my phone dies, I have no idea what her phone number
That
is.
is so funny.
And so I was finally like, I can't do this anymore.
What did the tattoo artist say?
That'll be $200.
Did you pick the font?
You want? Yeah, oh yeah. Well, she kind of picked it.
That's so,
That's so
funny.
funny.
I wanted to go like cholo riding, and
Yeah.
she's like, nah, that's
That would
not
be
No.
way
it.
better.
That is so
like
funny
that.
that you did that.
Yeah.
It's
So-
like your homage to her too. It's
It
like,
really is.
That's
It-
so cute. I
Yeah.
love it. And your kids, they are so I know Katie just through friends, and she's incredible.
She's wonderful.
She's incredible. She's now doing work. I would say it's in the healing, right? She's in the
Yes.
healing world
Her
as well.
website is Wilkes Wellness.
Yep.
Our last name and then wellness.com. And she, after college, lived in Paris
Yeah.
and got her master's in fashion
I know. I was obsessed with her.
and came back to New York and worked there for like 6 months.
I know.
And told
Wow.
me, this is soul crushing. This industry is
Really?
soul crushing.
Wow.
And I said to her, do something else. And I still remember the conversation. She just dissolved into tears. And she said, I feel like I've wasted so much time and so much money. I got 2 degrees from San Diego State. I lived in Paris for 2 years. I got a master's, and now I'm not going to do anything in fashion. And I said, wait a minute. You spent that time and that money figuring out something that didn't work.
Yeah.
And you're that much closer to finding out what is going to work.
Right.
This is a victory. And
See, this is what makes you such an incredible parent, too. You're always so nurturing of your children's, like, what they want to do. You whatever it is, they lead with as long as they're leading with their hearts and they're happy, you are like 100% behind it. And I remember that just from being in appointments with you. And I love, and Katie she is happy. She seems so happy and fulfilled. And it's so interesting too, because she's helping others kind of like you, right?
She is probably helping others more than I do.
No.
I mean, she is helping people truly with like spirituality and self-healing. And look, I can deliver a baby and
you bring life in.
You know, and I have a skill set that I think is very valuable.
Yes.
But I think she actually changes the course of people's lives emotionally.
Yeah.
And I just told you, like, my life looked great on the outside, but inside I was an absolute dumpster fire. She's dealing with that inside part.
Yeah.
And it's really wonderful to see. And I think, I don't know where this will lead her. I do know that she has kind of reached critical mass where someone does it and then tells someone, and then she gets invited to speak to a group of 20, and then 8 of the 20 sign up, and then they go and tell their friends. Like, it's that organic growth that she's reaching.
But also testimonies like of people that have worked with her, like,
yeah.
And she has some really great clients. Like, I've seen people refer to her that I follow. I'm like, holy crap! Like, Katie, you work with Katie? That's amazing.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's just fun to see her like evolve into the person she knows she is, but who God made her to be, right?
Yeah. And, you know, speaking of like someone coming into your life to help you realize your potential, she just got engaged to Ed.
That's right.
They're engaged.
She did.
And at their engagement party, I made a toast and I said, you know, as a parent, you're only as happy as your saddest child.
Oh, yes.
And there was a time in my life where I didn't think I'd ever be happy again.
Wow.
Because she was so sad.
Yeah.
And of all the things Ed has brought into our lives, bringing Katie's smile back is the most valuable. She has that sparkle back and that wit and that love of life, like waking up before the alarm goes off, love of life.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've counseled my kids when they say, you know, what do you think? I mean, Ryan was a basketball player at Gorman, and he was looking at taking the next step and going and playing college ball. And he came to me and said, Dad, I don't want to play basketball anymore. He's 6'6", you know.
He is tall.
Yeah. And I said, well, don't play. And he said, I don't think I want to go to college. I go, sweetheart, don't go to college.
See,
what do you want to do?
That's why I fucking love the shit out of you.
And he said, I want to design clothes. I want to make clothes. And I said, I'll tell you what. Let's get you a sewing machine. I got you for the next 2 years. Send me your bills. Figure it out. And fast forward, and he becomes the creative director for Embellish New York City and designed lines of clothing that sold over $2 million.
Yeah, he's amazing.
And he's now back in LA working with the guy who's like the guru of denim for the women's space.
Wow.
And at the same time, doing work for other companies that come up and say, hey, we want a pair of jeans for our spring line, put something together.
Wow.
And he spends 6 hours in this creative space and sends it to them, and they send him a check, you know.
That's amazing.
And Charlotte, who could do anything.
Yeah, she's your baby, right?
She's my baby.
She's
she can do
she's the
anything.
youngest, yeah.
Not an astronaut. She's not good at that.
Is that a whole other thing?
I don't want to say anything. But
That's if you,
I'm like,
you
girl,
guys would probably like that together. That
girl, know your limits. Lean into your looks. You're pretty.
She's gorgeous.
Yeah, she is. She's so pretty. But she's at Paul Mitchell in LA right now. I've never seen her happier. She's learning how to do hair and skincare and has this dream of being in that space in LA. And the kid is so happy.
I know.
And I have counseled my kids. When you're going to make a decision, there are two basic questions. Is it going to make the world a better place? Mm-hmm. And is it going to make me happy? And if the answer isn't yes to both, find something else.
Yeah.
Because we don't have that much time on earth.
Yeah.
Leave an impact.
Yeah.
Like, nobody remembers what you drove, where you live, no one's ever gotten up at a eulogy. And I do not know how I became the eulogy guy in Vegas, but I feel like I'm given one every 6 months. But I've never given a eulogy and said, this guy's Porsche was so badass and his house was 12,000 square feet.
Yeah, no.
It's about how these people make you feel.
True.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference they've made in your life.
Yeah.
It's not about...
Was that like a aha moment for you when you decided like this shit doesn't matter anymore? Like,
oh, it was total freedom. Total freedom. I mean, look, there are things I have in my life that are obscenely luxurious. Okay, like it's
I love that
embarrassing.
statement.
please just say a few, just for fun.
A plane.
Okay, you have a plane.
I have a. It's a
I
small.
love that.
It's a small plane. but you know. I'm not suggesting that you have to, live a life of poverty and minister to the poor and give away everything you own. You can still have a comfortable life. Mm-hmm. But my experience was that when my focus was on the pursuit of comfort, I was uncomfortable. Mm. And when my focus turned to maintaining sobriety and helping another alcoholic to achieve sobriety, everything else in my life fell into place.
Yeah.
It was service. And my prayer every morning is the same. God, please relieve me of my selfishness, my self-centeredness, and my anger, and put someone in my path today I can help.
Wow.
And help my receding hairline.
We got that prayer going in our house too.
Yeah, it's a beautiful prayer. I agree with every one of those things.
I'm going to Turkey in November to get the
Are you going to do it?
Yes.
Are you?
Oh,
You're
yeah.
going to go
I
to
watch
Turkey?
all that shit on TikTok.
Oh, it's gotten my forehead. My daughter calls it an 8 head.
Oh, God.
And then she puts 8 fingers over it.
Oh, my God.
She goes, you have an
but
8
it's
head.
like vetted? Do you have like reference? Like, do you...
Does he have references?
Well, I'm just saying. I don't know. Turkey's
He's
far.
not just randomly selecting somebody off
No,
Google.
I don't know.
I saw it on TikTok.
Told
there you
you.
go. Maybe I was wrong. Probably the same guy I follow.
I have a buddy who will remain anonymous,
Yeah.
who I was talking to, and I was saying, dude, I'm thinking of getting some hair stuff done because my forehead is like, I could sell advertising space on it. And he said, I had it done in Beverly Hills, I had it done in Vegas, and I had it done in Turkey. Go to Turkey.
Wow.
And so the way Christine functions is, I could, in passing, we could be watching a show on TV, and I could say, oh, Ireland looks cool. And in 2 days, we have a trip planned to Ireland.
Oh, my gosh.
And not only that, she's like, downloaded menus, we have reservations,
I
and
love
she already
that.
knows what
that.
she's ordering.
See, I love that.
So when I went and told her, hey,
This is what I'm
so-and-so
thinking.
told me Turkey's the place to go, and he sent me the Instagram, and da-da-da. She goes, forward it to me. That was on Saturday. What's today? Monday? I have round-trip flights, a hotel for 4 nights, and an appointment with the doctor.
That's amazing.
That's 48
great.
hours.
That's great.
That's quick.
That's him. That's how he is.
I'm not that quick. That's world record shit. Like
That's amazing.
Me, I'm more like, throw some T-shirts and bathing suits in a bag, get a ticket, we'll figure it out when we get there.
Yeah.
And she's
so
like,
funny.
we wake at 8, by 8:05, we're done with coffee.
It's so funny. It's very scheduled.
You know.
I barely know what day it is.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sometimes I'm like, are we still in Mexico? And
Oh my God.
Yeah,
But
and
she obviously is so great for you because I remember a pastor saying once, like, the reason God brings you people that are literally your opposite is because you can't cut food with 2 forks. You need a knife and a fork. And I'm like, you're the knife. I'm the fork, right? Or maybe opposite. I don't know. Well, you hold it together.
He's
slice
the
through
knife.
It.
Yeah.
He's the knife. Yeah.
You're the fork.
you're just scooping it up.
eating, consuming.
I'm doing all the work.
You're tiny.
Yep.
He's a lot sharper.
Yeah.
He is.
You're
He
like
is sharper.
you're a soup spoon.
He's a nice.
I'm one of those spoons that you get with the miso soup.
Yeah,
Just a
exactly.
little wide and long, awkward to hold.
Yeah. No,
But that's
it's
amazing, and but I think that's why you guys you do so well together too. Like I bet you love that sense of like she has to have some sense of spontaneity and adventure to like book a trip.
Yes.
And plan it for you.
Yes,
That's
she
amazing.
will. When we were at that, we were at a event on Saturday, and I'm taking her to Tahoe this Saturday, Sunday, Monday for her birthday.
Aw.
And the people we were sitting with said, "What are you guys doing for the 4th?" And Christine said, I want him to go up to the club, but he's being a little bitch about it. He said it's going to be 105 and he's not going.
True.
And they said, we're going to Park City. We have a house in Park City.
my
Why
God.
don't you guys come? And she's like, what are you doing Thursday and Friday? And I pull out my thing and I go, I don't know, I'm free. And by the time we left the party, we had tickets booked to Park City for
Wow.
24 hours to go watch fireworks.
I love her.
So she does have that
yeah.
in her.
Yeah.
But,
She's
And it'll be
decisive,
nice
too.
and cool.
and today's Tuesday, we leave Thursday. I got home from work today and she had outfits laid on the bed
Oh my gosh.
for every
so great.
possible eventuality.
Whereas you're like 2 t-shirts and a pair
I'm
of
like,
swim
girl, we're
trunks.
going to be there for 24 hours.
Yeah.
You need options.
It's
Don't
not
know.
that
It
serious.
might rain. It might be. You never know.
It's not that serious. But no, she does have that, both sides of that.
That's so
you
great.
know?
And your kids love her, and that makes it even like, I don't know. I'm just so happy for you.
Thank you.
It's so good. It's so good. I mean, how long have you been together?
So 6.5 years,
Wow.
married for about 2.5. Yeah, we were to.
I mean, you see a lot of women.
I do.
A lot.
See,
Tons.
See a lot of women.
Tens of
I'm
thousands.
do you
sick.
know the number of like babies you've
I've
delivered?
delivered around 14,000.
Shut
Holy
up.
shit.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, about 14.
Is it amazing? Like, I feel like you would be so close to God just being in that position, like watching that happen. Like, that is miraculous,
Every time.
right?
Yeah.
Every time. It's miraculous.
I'm so enamored by that.
It
Like,
is never routine.
Wow.
It's never routine. Even the most routine medical situation is still miraculous,
Right.
in my opinion.
Wow.
Like, this is a life.
Yeah.
And I got to see this person take their first breath.
Yeah. It's amazing. You're like right there. You're like right there in the room with God
I'm
when that
like
happens.
a God.
Yes, you are.
Let's jump to that.
Yeah.
I mean, you deal with, I mean, I would just with your patient repertoire,
been
you're a
blessed.
God. Yeah. Like you deal with a lot of hormones.
Yeah, because you're seeing women in their highest of highs, obviously, but in most cases, their lowest of lows. No
Yeah.
pun intended. Like, they're not seeing you when they're happy. In most cases, it's probably the latter.
I think a lot of what I do, I mentioned it before, is reassurance.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it's so important. And when the lug nuts start to loosen and you start to get into problems, I think our basic instinct is to go to worst case scenario,
Yeah.
to get too far out in the future and to become anxious. And I have something that I used it twice today in talking with patients. And I really firmly believe this. About 95% of what we worry about never happens. And the 5% of stuff that we worry about that happens, our worrying about it didn't keep it from happening.
Yeah.
So what choice do we have? How are we going to behave in the moment?
Yeah.
And all I'm doing, if I'm being anxious about the future, is number one, I'm being unfaithful. I don't believe that God's got it.
Yeah.
And number two, I'm robbing myself of my happiness in this moment for a debt I'm probably not going to have to pay in the future.
Yeah.
And, I said to one of my patients today, I said, let me ask you, if I asked you to send me $100 a week for 5 years, and I told you I might buy you a car in 5 years, but probably not. Are you going to send me that money?
No. Yeah.
So we're talking about money. You can make more money, but you're willing to pay that same emotional debt today.
Yeah. Wow.
For something that's
may happen.
likely is
Probably
not going
won't.
to.
Yeah.
Probably won't.
Yeah.
So you're willing to spend your emotional capital every day, but you wouldn't be willing to spend your financial capital. And financial capital, there's more of it.
Yeah.
But every second, every minute that I spend anxious and distant from knowing that someone else is running the world, who I choose to call God,
Yep.
that's a moment I'm not getting back. Right?
Yeah.
So we'll spend our emotional capital, anxiety, and depression and think nothing of it. There's no sense in that, because the alternative to fear is faith. And if I have the choice, which I've been given,
Yep.
the choice, I have the choice of what my second thought's going to be. I don't have the choice of my first. My first is generally negative, fear-based. But I do have the choice of my second. And I can either continue down fear, or I can take the off-ramp to faith.
Yeah.
I get to choose that. And what I've trained my brain to do is when fear enters my life, I turn to faith.
So what does that look like? Let's say a thought comes in. What do you do? You immediately pray? Do you immediately? What does that look like? Because I'm curious for myself.
I'll give you an example. I was standing at the end of my driveway, June of last year, and my son Ryan called me, and he was crying, and he said, "Dad, do you have a second to talk?" And I said, "I do." And he said, "Hold on, I have to go three-way with my doctor. He got my biopsy results back, and his doctor told me he had lymphoma in his neck."
Holy shit.
And I said, "Okay, tell me what the pathology reads, lymphoproliferative disorder." You know, they don't ever commit, but it for all intents and purposes was lymphoma. I said, "Okay, thank you." And the doctor hung up. And I said to Ryan, "How are you feeling?" And he said, "I don't know how to feel. I'm freaking out." He's crying. I said, "Stop that. Stop that. Chin up, chest out. We're going to put our armor on, and we're going to go against this shoulder to shoulder." Right? I don't know how this ends, but I know that we're going to hit it with everything we have.
Yeah.
Okay? I didn't have an ounce of fear the entire time.
Wow.
A week later, we were on a plane going to Baylor in Houston to meet with oncologists, head and neck surgeons, radiologists, pathologists. Not once was I afraid.
Wow.
Not once. And that's what it looks like for me.
Wow.
I don't. Now, of course, when I hung up the phone with him, I went to sit in my backyard and I said, "God, give me the strength to accept the outcome that you've deemed fit."
Wow.
Not once did I say, "God, cure him of this." Not once did I say, "God, don't let it be cancer." I said, "God, give me the strength to lead my family through this." Because when I quit praying for outcomes and started praying for God's guidance and knowledge of God's will for me, my life got so simple.
Wow.
I have said prayers for the girl, the job, the money, the car. Very few of them have come true. Okay?
The plane came through.
I did not pray for the plane.
There
That
you go.
was just grace.
Perfect.
I never said, "God, please give me a plane." I said, "God,
That's what I gotta
please
stop
don't ever
doing.
let me fly Southwest
There
again."
you go. We're doing everything fucking backwards.
There's a difference.
Totally.
There's a difference. And he got me a ticket on Spirit. To
There you
humble
go.
me.
There you go.
To humbly sit
I'll make,
down.
Exactly.
I'll
You
make
want-
you wish for Southwest, motherfucker. Where peanuts aren't $2. But when I pray for stuff, it rarely comes
Yeah.
true. When I pray for the knowledge of God's will and the power to carry that out, that's step 3 in Alcoholics Anonymous. I want the knowledge of your will, and I want you to guide me. What's your will for me? Okay, great. Now guide me the best way to achieve that. And my life got so simple. Sitting here today, I have no problems.
Wow.
I don't.
I mean,
Where-
it's fairly obvious because of that outlook. Like, that's the best way I've heard it described. That's so good.
I know, it's beautiful.
Knowledge of God's will and the power
Where
to
was
carry
that
it out.
moment where you said, "Okay, God, I'm surrendering it. My shit." Oh, sorry. Well, I'm sure God knows, I swear. But
He knows
You
by
know.
now.
I'm surrendering. When I got pregnant with the twins, this was my other moment where because my faith, it comes and goes, and when you're not actively like looking to God for everything, and I became very worldly, I had had my daughter, I lost a bunch of weight, we were fucking like rabbits. It was wonderful. It was a great life. Like I was like, I'm finally thin, I can go out, my kids are old enough, I'm infatuated with myself, he wants me. Twins with an IUD. Like my IUD failed me. I got pregnant with the twins like weeks later. I was so angry.
No.
I was so mad. I was like, why? Why did you do this to me? And I didn't say a word to God. I kept myself, I just was sitting in my anger, crying about it. Like, I worked so hard. We're so happy. We were going to go to Mexico. We were going to finally have like this freedom. We had 2 kids. We were finally going to be like living. And my Aunt Chrissy was on the phone with me, and she said, Danielle, well, my sister actually said, I want you to stop looking at that God did this to you. He did this for you.
Right.
Perspective shift. Holy shit. And then my Aunt Chrissy said to me, she goes, have you talked to God? I'm like, no. And just prior to that, I was having very, very dark thoughts. I was not in a good place. Very bad thoughts of not taking my life, but those things were like going through my head. I was in a dark place.
Sure.
And while I was thin and having rabbit sex, right? So I thought I was good, but then I'd get in this dark place where I was just not good. And that's why I went to the doctor, and that's where I found out I was pregnant. My Aunt Chrissy goes, have you talked to God? And I said, no, I haven't. And she's like, if your child was angry with you, wouldn't you want them to come to you and say, why, like, this is hurting me. Why did you do this to me? She goes, I want you to go to God and tell him how you feel. Just like you would want one of your children to come to you and tell you how hurt they are. Not that he did it to you, but he did it for you, whatever. That night, I was in my bath, and I sat there, and I actually just talked to God. And it was 3 months in. And at that moment, there was a shift. I don't know what it was, Holy Spirit, whatever it was, but being able to open that dialogue with God. And I had known God. I loved God. I was baptized, but I was so angry that this happened because I was feeling so good. But again, you said this in a podcast, and it stuck with me. You said, like, God made you perfectly in his image, right? He loves the way you are. I don't remember how you put it, but it spoke recently too, because I'm back in that place where I'm like, I don't like the way I look, I don't like the way I feel, blah, blah, whatever. But it brought me to tears because you were saying how God just knows who he made you to be, and it's not external. It's the soul work that God does. And you didn't say it like this, but that's how I received it. Like, God made you perfect, and God made you who he wanted you to be. And once you learn to accept and love that, nothing else matters.
It's true.
Like, being skinny comes with a bunch of other fucking problems. Like, right? It doesn't matter where you are, but when you get right with your soul and who you are, I just took so much from what you said in the previous podcast, and it really meant a lot to me.
Oh, thank you.
And I don't know if you want to speak to that by any means, but I don't even know where I was going with that. I kind of went off on a tangent.
No, that's great.
But I'm just saying your words in that moment were so true, and I'm just wondering, where did that come from? Because I don't know if that was always with you. Like, you've had to live through, like, where did you meet God? Like, where was your moment where you were like, this is it? Like, I know you've known God, but was there ever a moment you were like, there you are, here I am, whatever, I don't know. Because I feel like even your daughter said, his spiritual life in the last 5 to 6 years has really changed his life.
Yeah, I think that getting into a relationship with Christine and seeing how, like, she's the greatest person I've ever met. I love her so deeply. And for me, if someone like that loves me unconditionally.
Yeah.
Because a lot of my relationships in my own head,
Yes.
not in reality, but a lot of my relationships in my own head were transactional. Okay? I'm going to do this for you, and you're going to treat me well. And when I stop doing this for you, you're going to be an asshole to me. So I'm going to keep doing it for you. And as I'm doing it for you, I'm building resentments that I'm having to pay for your affection, approval, friendship, whatever. Now, again, I want to be clear. That was all nonsense in my own head.
Stories.
Okay? But in getting into this relationship with Christine, I thought, here's truly like the coolest, funniest, most accepting, loving, kind person I've ever met. And I meet a lot of people.
Yeah, you do.
And she loves me unconditionally.
Yeah.
She loves me even when she doesn't like me. And for me, that was spiritual.
Yeah.
It wasn't, I remember, so after our first date, I called her up the next day and I said, look, I'd love to take you out again. Let's go to Mastro's over at Crystal's. And Christine was working at Cosmo at the time. And I said, I'll come pick you up at Cosmo. We'll walk over together. And I remember walking up to meet her and thinking, wow, she is really pretty. Not once during our first date, it's the weirdest thing. Not once did I ever think of her as pretty or sexy, or I just thought she was so cool.
Right.
And it wasn't until our second date when I was like walking up to her, I was like, wow, like blown away how pretty she was.
Right.
And to me, everything about her that I love is internal.
Yeah.
And I knew that there was no way that we were going to be apart when on our second date, we got our appetizers and I got called by the hospital and they said, you had a patient just get here. She's 8 centimeters. You need to come now. And I said to Christine, I'm really sorry about this. I have an emergency. And she said, if you're not feeling it, you can tell me. I'm a big girl. And I said, what are you talking about? She said, what kind of emergency could you have? You sell glasses.
Oh my God, she thought you sold
She thought I was. I said,
because you do have a glasses collection
no,
as well.
I said, that's an optician. I'm an obstetrician.
Oh my God, how funny.
I delivered babies. And she was like, whatever. And
Cool.
I thought like, there's just this chemistry.
Yeah.
And I said to her, I go, look, no monkey business. Let's get our food to go. Hospital's 5 minutes from my house. You can go hang out with my dogs. We'll finish dinner after I'm done.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be away from her. After the first time I was with her, I didn't want to be away from her. It was not physical. And I think anyone who's seen her, like I'm the guy who walks into a restaurant, people are like, how the fuck did that happen? And I'm like, I don't know. Like
You dress very well though.
I look at dudes looking at me with her and I'm like, bro, I
don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know.
But you would think like that was the attraction, a physical attraction. She's very pretty. It never once occurred to me.
Wow.
Just the icing on the cake for you.
It never once occurred to me.
That's amazing.
That was I think, growing into that relationship and realizing that no matter how unlovable I felt, she still loved me.
Yeah.
That's not of this world.
It's not. I
Right?
agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that when you feel unlovable and you're behaving in an unlovable manner, that it's human nature for people to love you more. And that's exactly what she did.
Wow.
That was from God.
I agree.
And it got me to think, like, you have a responsibility to be a better man.
Yeah.
You have a responsibility to be a better father. You have a responsibility to be a better ex-husband, a better friend, son, brother, uncle, whatever. Because that's the first time I felt a direct channel to God's love.
Wow.
It was kind of like I felt like God is loving me through Christine to let me know what's possible.
Yeah.
And it sounds weird.
No.
But it's really, that was my spiritual experience.
Yeah.
I understand. That's how I feel with him. I really do. I don't know if he feels that way about me, but
He does.
It's not as deep, but I do feel the same.
He's like, I like you.
you're
That's what it was
nice.
like. It was like, you were great. You were hot. I was trying to be a good friend.
And there was that period of the rabbit sex.
Yes,
Yep.
I know.
No, that was
Well,
a good
that
era.
was after.
Yeah.
That
Trying to
was
get back
after.
there.
I think the line that got you was the first time that we actually like
Yeah. That was a
got
good one.
together. He looked over, like we looked at me. He was like, "That was great." I'm like, "I've had better," and I
Nice.
hadn't. I just
Honesty.
stayed and laughed.
Brutal honesty.
It was just funny. It was, and that was it. And
Yep.
we'd always talk about who was funnier. It's true, and I
You
truly.
guys are hysterical.
Oh, we have
And
fun.
I think anyone, and I really think that's kind of the ultimate show of affection. It's not the physical, but when you are laughing together, that feeling that you get when you're like cry laughing, can't fall asleep because you're laughing
Yes.
so hard. To me, that's the best.
It really.
And that's
it's
how I
true.
make her feel.
I will
That's how
take
he
that.
makes me feel.
I will take that over busting a big old nut any day.
Oh well, I don't know.
Unless my wife's listening to
Th-
this.
then
I'll have to
then
try
you're
it.
lying.
I
What'd
mean-
you
I don't
say?
think you've made me laugh that hard.
That's right.
Shut up.
She's
I'm
like, I'll
just
make you
joking.
laugh so hard you'll bust it.
There you go.
There you go.
We'll try
think
it.
I have.
We'll try anything once.
Oh God. Well, I before you go, didn't you have a question for him that you wanted to ask him?
Yeah, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but there was one thing I had heard you mention on a previous podcast, like talking through your addiction and how there's this stigma with you being like a medical provider and a doctor. Like,
Yeah.
I'd never thought about it from that perspective. Like, you know, we could go out, we could have a friend who's a doctor and go to his house and drink, and we could think high things of him. And to think that maybe he was an addict, that there's immediately a stigma put on him. When
Yeah.
you were in recovery, there's a stigma put on that, like, oh, I don't want the alcoholic doctor.
Right.
But I think the way you described it was so beautiful in the way that, like, I'm doing terrible justice because I'm putting words in your mouth, but the way you described it was amazing. Just the way people approached you after the fact and the way you handled that, knowing that you were just improving yourself and understanding where you were coming from and you were in a better place. It was really interesting because I never thought about it from that way.
I mean, I think there are people who think I'm radioactive.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you're an addict or you're an alcoholic, and that I think does have a lot attached to it. Like, well, what if he relapses? Okay. Well, I've raised my hand and said, keep an eye on me.
Right.
Keep an eye on me. I need you to keep an eye on me. I need to be accountable, because I think, you know, most addicts and alcoholics, there's always a voice in the back of your head that's like, well, it wasn't that bad. Or, you know, you've been sober for a decade, so you can maybe just one, you know? So the reason that I'm very transparent about this is because I have a responsibility to help the next person. And I'll give you a quick example. I was on labor and delivery, and I won't say when and I won't say where for confidentiality, but I was on labor and delivery. And I heard the nurses talking about a patient who had come to labor and delivery with no prenatal care or spotty prenatal care. They did a urine drug screen. She had methamphetamine, fentanyl, and marijuana in her urine. And I think that that's very difficult as a healthcare provider, especially as a woman taking care of a pregnant woman. Like, what are you doing? You're pregnant.
Yeah.
You're doing this to your child. But that comes from a space of not understanding addiction.
Right.
So I asked, what room is this patient in? And they told me. And I drove home and I asked my wife if she had a 24-hour chip. And a 24-hour chip is a chip you get when you go to your first meeting if you've committed to 24 hours without drinking or using. And she said, I think I have one. Let me check. And she dumped out her bag and she found one. And I drove back to the hospital and I knocked on the door and I walked into the room and the patient was in her bed, the father of the child and one of their friends. And I said, hi, how are you doing? She goes, I'm okay. I'm a little nervous. She was getting ready to deliver. And I said, I just want to come in and introduce myself. I'm Dr. Wilkes. I'm going to be helping your doctor with the delivery. She goes, okay. I go, I'm also a drug addict. And she like looked at me and I go, but I'm in recovery. I said, you came in here with methamphetamine, fentanyl, and marijuana in your urine, right? She goes, I did. I go, I know why you do that, because you don't like the way you feel. Mm-hmm. I know why you do that, because I've been there. But there's a better way. And I said, I have a 24-hour chip for you. Have you done any drugs since you've been in the hospital? And she said, no. And I said, I'd like to give you this chip because it might be the first step to a better life.
Wow.
I said, I'm not here to lecture you. I'm not here to preach, and I'm not here to judge you. I'm just here to let you know there's a better way if you want to consider it.
Yeah.
We took her back to the operating room. We were in the middle of the surgery, and I looked over, and she had the 24-hour chip in her hand.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, her child might not ever know her drunk or high.
Wow.
Now, if me taking that chance
Yep.
has negative consequences with hospital administration, with the nurse who was sitting in the room and heard it, with the father of her child reporting to me to the medical board that I was inappropriate, if all of that happens, and this woman, I've planted the seed that there's a better way of life, and that baby that I just delivered is never going to see her impaired, I win.
You've done, yeah. Wow.
I win. So I'm
Wow.
not afraid of being judged. I am not afraid of being judged. I think the thing that terrifies me is that at the end of it all, I didn't make a difference.
Yeah.
And
I don't think you need to worry about
when I'm
that.
tired,
Yeah.
when I'm hungry, when my back hurts, I had spinal fusion 2 years ago.
I
My
heard
back
about
hurts.
this.
When I'm, under a lot of stress, that's my touchstone.
Yeah.
You have an opportunity to make a difference in someone's life. That's the greatest gift God's ever given me.
And I think you just telling your story and being so transparent about it too, like the fact that you physically went back to the hospital and checked on her and empathized with her and leveled the playing field in a way, I felt like that breaks down walls. It really does. And when you don't feel judged, I feel like there's such like a sense of, it's like you can breathe, right? And you doing that, that was probably, I don't know her, but you just telling me that story, I'm like, that girl probably felt like she could breathe.
I hope. And you know what?
Have you followed up?
No, she was still kind of in the throes of healing.
Okay.
From the surgery, but I don't know. I think
You definitely planted a seed though, for sure.
when someone reaches out to you and just plants the seed that there might be a better way, even if you go out and you go on another 5-year run, you can't unring that bell.
Right.
Yeah.
I hope she remembers, I remember that guy with the receding hairline who came in here and told me.
With that 9 head.
And yeah. First of all, it's an 8 head.
Sorry.
What are you
I
doing?
added
Why are
it
you
in.
rounding
Sorry.
up? Why are you rounding
such an
up?
awkward
That's
number.
it's so not cool.
I know.
I came in with an 8 head. I'm leaving with a 9 head. But
Not for long.
I'm hoping that at some point in her future, that flashes.
Oh, I didn't even have an encounter with you like that, and you leave an impression on
Oh,
on
thank
people.
you.
I'm not even joking.
Thank you.
It wasn't just like blowing smoke. Like literally everyone that you come in contact loves you because you are exactly who you are right here. You're loving, compassionate. You go above and beyond, and it's clear that your goal is to just better others' lives. And you'd think you'd be doing that just by delivering their child and bringing it into this world, but you take a step beyond that, and it's incredible. It's incredible, and I love knowing you.
Thank
and your
you.
children are a testament of that love because they're all
the
beautiful
best.
people. And even your ex-wife fucking loves you.
She's wonderful.
She loves the
I know.
shit out of you.
How many people can say that?
No, but no. Not.
She's wonderful. I'll say this and then I'll shut up. Divorce now is like 60%.
Yeah.
And in addition to being the go-to guy for eulogies, I'm the go-to guy for divorce counseling. I think people are like, Wilkes seems to have figured it out. Let me ask him.
Let's talk to him.
And I'll tell you, it's really simple for me to love Megan unconditionally. Mm-hmm. And here's why. The most beautiful gifts I've ever been given are my 3 children. And I wouldn't have those 3 children without that exact woman.
Yeah.
And everything goes back to that.
Yeah.
So when guys come to me and they say, how did you do it? How do you get through it? I give them 3 pieces of advice. I say, remember why you got married, not why you're getting divorced. Give her more than you think she deserves. She'll never regret it. And never, ever say anything unkind about her in public.
Wow.
You want to go out and have a beer with your boys and shred her? Go ahead. Never be unkind about her in public.
Yeah.
That's the mother of your children.
Yeah.
Okay? No one ever listens, but
But
I think
still,
if one does,
you
you've made the world a
you
better
can
place.
shoot
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
You know? No, I'm a lucky guy. I have a life beyond my wildest dreams.
I'm so happy for you.
Yeah, so am I.
I really am.
So am I.
And I'm glad you're still practicing.
I am.
I mean, like this is the Lord's work you're doing.
I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. I got a plane to pay
Oh
for.
my
Yeah, I
God,
know.
you're right.
Okay?
No more shoes, just
Yeah.
planes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time,
Thank
energy.
you
I
for
know you
having
put-
me.
Thank
We
you
love
so
you.
much. You were so great. This
Anytime.
was so fun.
Anytime.
All right, thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.